Greetings, I'm Leng Jiang. Lily was a young single pregnant mother. A few years ago, she worked in Shenzhen and met a Hong Kong freight driver. She soon lived with him and had a baby. When Lily was in labor, the man disappeared. She couldn't find her boyfriend everywhere with her swollen belly. In order to live, Lily had to go to a stretched noodles restaurant for a living. But the boss fired her because he was afraid that she would deliver baby in the restaurant. Without a job, Lily couldn't afford the expenses at hospital, so she plucked up the courage, planning to give birth to the child in the cheap group-rented dormitory by herself. Young and inexperienced, she was in pain and sweating profusely, but the child still refused to be born. In the end, it was her friend Hu Jinling, who happened to visit her, sent her to the hospital in time to save the lives of both mother and son. After the child was born, Lily also owed Hu a lot of money, so she was looking for work everywhere, desperate for money. But with a child, no company wanted to hire her. It was not that Lily was never thought of sending her child back to her hometown, but her patriotic mother did not like her, and her father was also a stepdad, so she could only take her child to survive in the big city. On this day, Lily came out to look for a job with her baby and ran into a woman on the way back. The woman enthusiastically wanted to find a job for her, and Lily naively followed her to a remote place. The people in a van took the child and handed her 3,000 yuan. At this time, Lily finally realized that they wanted to abduct their children. She wanted to snatch the child back. Regardless of the van had been started, she clung to the door and did not let it go. Lily was dragged all the way, and the people in the car saw her fearless look and finally returned the child to her. Then she went to the hospital to treat her wound. When she remembered that her baby seemed to have a cold, she asked the doctor to also diagnose for her baby. But the doctor told Lily a news. To her great astonishment, the baby had congenital heart disease. To cure him, the operation fee would cost at least 80,000 yuan. But Lily couldn't even support her own life. She couldn't get so much money at all. In desperation, Lily wanted to be a mistress of the rich, like her friend Hu Jinling, to raise money. But she was so naive that she couldn't intrigue with people. She went directly to the street and found someone to strike up a conversation. The result was definitely a failure. But the optimistic Lily still did not give up. She entrusted the child to an old nanny and went to a hotel to be a receptionist. But the baby gradually became seriously ill and had a high fever. Finally, the nanny was unwilling to help to look after her child anymore. At this time, her good friend Hu Jinling was also driven out by the owner, so the two depended on each other. Soon, under Hu's introduction, Lily reluctantly pawned herself to a new money in order to obtain money to save her child. The young and beautiful Lily was indeed favored by him in the end. But she told the fact that she had a child who needed money for surgery with the idea of not deceiving others. Although the upstart did not accept Lily in the end, he still gave her 5,000 yuan. The kind Lily didn't want to take other people's money for nothing and secretly put the money back through the crack of the door. Later, Lily went to a restaurant to wash dishes. There were a mountain of plates. She was sweating profusely and kept working with her hands. But it was impossible for her to save 80,000 yuan for surgery by washing dishes. Walking on the bustling street, Lily felt helpless. Why is there no place for her in this world? Lily, who was so desperate, thought of selling her own organs in the end. It is said that one kidney could sell for more than 200,000. She found a kidney sales agency. It was a dirty and messy private residence, which didn't look like a hospital at all. Lily, who was in desperate need of money, didn't care that much. The agency asked her to pay 1,000 yuan for the lab test first, and she obediently paid the money. But when they asked her to strip, Lily helplessly cried. In the end, she laid obediently on a towsy bed. Just when her blood was being drawn, fortunately, Hu Jinling kicked the door and rescued her. Hu slapped her angrily, for she didn't take care of herself. Later, Hu even voluntarily ran into a speeding car in order to help her best friend collect money. Fortunately, there was no major incident, only minor injuries. The driver paid thousands of yuan to settle the dispute. They tried everything and still didn't collect enough money. Lily was exhausted. In the end, she put the child in a cardboard box and planned to put it in the park for adoption by capable and kind people. There were a lot of people coming and going in the park. Many people saw the child, but none of them wanted to adopt it. Fortunately, a kind couple took the child back home, but the couple were not rich, and they couldn't afford the operation fee of 80,000 yuan. Finally, Lily took the child back. Lily's torturous and tragic experience attracted a lesser-known female writer's attention. She wanted to create a novel based on Lily's experience. Although Lily had encountered many misfortunes, her open-minded attitude had left the writer deeply moved. She bought a lot of high-quality milk powder for Lily and donated all her savings to Lily, but the kind Lily firmly rejected because she didn't want others to lose a family fortune for her sake. Therefore, the writer published her story on the internet, hoping someone with good intentions could lend a helping hand. In fact, the writer just wanted to learn from Lily's experience to write a novel at the beginning, but now she was completely moved by Lily's kindness and cheerfulness, and sincerely wanted to help Lily. She even gave her mobile phone to Lily in order to contact her later. 3 months later, there was a website that raised enough money of 80,000 yuan for Lily, but the place where Lily once lived had been demolished, and the writer went through troubles to find her. With this background, the movie finally gave 3 endings. The first ending was that Lily was involved in a drug cartel in order to save her child. The writer told her the good news when she went to see her in prison, but Lily said blankly that she didn't need it. Some kind people had already donated money. Her baby had had the operation and was now adopted by Hu Jinling. Seeing Lily, who was once positive and cheerful, turn into a lifeless woman she was now, the writer choked up and asked Lily why she wanted to help drug dealers deliver drugs. Knowing that she had committed an unrepentant mistake, Lily finally lost her hope of life and was determined to die. The second ending, Lily finally got together with a rich old man for money. She saved the child at the expense of her lifetime happiness. The third ending, when the writer made up enough money for surgery and contacted Lily, the child had passed away due to the serious illness, and finally, Lily hung up the phone and lost contact with the writer. The end. In fact, even if the movie has 3 endings, we all know that only the third is the reality. The first ending is too bizarre. How can ordinary people easily contact drug dealers? Moreover, Lily's attitude towards death in the end was very inconsistent with the optimism she had shown earlier. As for the second one, it's too idealistic. In real life, how can there be any rich person who will help you in time when you need help? Only the third ending is the reality of ordinary people, struggling at the bottom of society. Although they had exerted their best efforts and had already worked very hard, the ending was still heartbreaking. This is reality. At the end of the film, the writer stood on the street and looked at the women who came and went of all sorts. Each of them seemed to have the shadow of Lily, but they were all unique. All right, that's all for today's movie sharing. I'm Leng Jiang. See you next time.